anyone I know that has read A Court of Thorns and Ruins, Court of Thorns and Ruins? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jess. Today is Top 5 Wednesday, and today's Top 5 Wednesday is series that got better as you read them. Now, I had a little bit of trouble thinking about this, and I don't know why, because once I started realizing the series that I ended up liking but kind of started off a little iffy about, it was so easy to think of them. A couple of these will be no surprise to you guys because I have talked about them before on my channel, but I couldn't not include them because honestly, a lot of the series that I read, I just immediately enjoy. I immediately like them because I am a big fan of series in general. I will list the Goodreads group down below, as well as Lainey and Thoughts on Tomes YouTube as well. They are the creators of this. Lainey created it, and then Thoughts on Tomes has obviously taken over the tag, but I am very excited to do this, so yeah, let's go ahead and just get started. Now, the first series I'm going to go ahead and talk about is A Court of Thorns and Roses. Now, this book, the second one, is my absolute favorite. The first one, however, I was not a big fan of when I was reading it. I was sort of just like, I mean, I did like Tamlin. I know, sue me. I did like Tamlin when I was first reading that, but obviously, if you have read this series, you know that anyone I know that has read A Court of Thorns and Roses says that the first one's kind of and then this one is amazing. Now, if you haven't read the third one, I won't go into too much detail on it, but honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of the third one either. I like the first one better than the third one, but this series gets better and then kind of like falls off a little bit at the end. Obviously, she's not done with the world, so we'll see where she goes with that, but this is the first series that I want to talk about because the second book I think is absolute perfection, 5 stars all around, but the first one is kind of meh. Alright, now we're just going to go ahead and keep with Sarah J. Maas. I did not like Throne of Glass, the first book from this series. The Throne of Glass series is amazing and I absolutely love it. I love Rowan, I love every single character in there, I love Selena, I love Aiden, I love everybody. But the first book, when I read it, I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I honestly read about 50-60 pages into it. I think, yeah, I'm stuck on page 57 is where my big crease is. I had my friend's book for almost a year before I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna finish it because I hate having unfinished books, and I'm so glad I did. But when I finished the first one, I was kind of meh about it. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna continue, and then she lent me the second one and I read that and it took off from there. I think that this series is beautiful, it is wonderful. I am so excited for the next 2 books. I need a standalone for K-All, and I'm so excited to see how my babies are doing, but this series when I first started was just kind of meh for me, but I am glad I continued with it. If you are reading this series and you're reading this book and you're like, I don't know if I want to read this, it is a lot of like a little bit of instant romance, kind of a love triangle thing going on in the first part, it is worth keeping up with because it picks up and it is so amazing. It is a beautiful, beautiful work of art in my opinion. I love this series. I actually like this series more than I love the ACOTAR series, so I think this series is worth it. If you have not read it or if you're starting to read it and you don't know if you want to continue with it, it just gets better. Sarah just gets better. Her writing is beautiful. The story is beautiful. The characters are wonderful. I love them. I love the story development. I love the character development. So yeah, I definitely think that this series gets better the further along that you get in it. Like I said, I have mentioned some of these before on my channel. Now I would say the Rainwild Chronicles, when I was first reading this book, when I read the first book, I liked it, but I didn't love it. I didn't love it as much as I ended up loving it in the end. So this story follows a woman named Elise who is kind of a babysitter for dragons. The dragons are trying to find their home called Kalsingra, and the humans take on the task of bringing the dragons from where they have hatched, essentially, because dragons haven't been around for a very long time. They're trying to take them from where they've hatched back to their own city, and that's what this story follows. And the character development in these books is absolutely amazing. I think the story is wonderful. I love the dragons. I recommend this series to everyone who loves dragons and loves kind of like fantasy type books. There's not a whole lot of like fighting or anything like that in it, but it is fantasy mixed with just like life, and I think that it is beautiful and wonderful. Everyone I know that has read it loves it. If you're a fan of Robin Hobb and you haven't read this, I definitely would. I think that this series is beautiful. Alright, now the next series I'm going to talk about may shock some of you guys, but it is the Dark Tower series. This is obviously not the first book, but my little copy of the Dark Tower is in like a little set and I don't want to kind of get it out. But the first book in this series is so terrible. I am possibly the biggest Stephen King fan on the planet. Like, I am looking at Stephen King tattoos. I want to meet him. Like, I just absolutely love him. But this series, even though it is my most favorite series of all time, the first book is absolute garbage. Even he has said that he does not like the first book. He wrote it when he was really young. He didn't like the way that it kind of went, and I'm excited to see them turn it into a movie. I know that's weird, but I love Stephen King movies. I love anything that is like book to movie, book to TV show adaptation that he has done. I'm such a big fan, but this series, holy shit, the first book is absolutely awful. When I read it, had I not been such a big Stephen King fan, I never would have continued. I was like, okay, look, the first book is really terrible, but there are so many more of them. It must have taken off. It must have been it must have become such a wonderful thing. If you're reading the first one, it is The Gunslinger, and if you are not a big Stephen King fan and you were like, holy cow, I cannot continue with this is absolutely terrible, I promise you this series has so many wonderful things in it. It is dark, it is creepy, it is otherworldly, it really makes you think, and I just absolutely love this series. So if you are interested in it, I would continue to read it, or try to push through The Gunslinger. Shit, at this point I would just skip The Gunslinger, because honestly, even me reading it, someone who loves Stephen King, who loves reading, that book was so all over the place and so weird and random, and I honestly think that you probably just skip it. Alright, and the last series that I want to mention is the Shades of Magic trilogy. When I read these, I thought the first book was okay. It follows our main character Kel, who brings something back to his world that he's not supposed to have there, and he releases a different type of magic in the London that he lives in. There are 4 different Londons and he can travel between all 4 of them. Now, I love the storyline of this. I thought it was really great. However, I hated Lila so much in this first book that it was not enjoyable to me. I thought that she was an annoying character. I thought she was argumentative. She was just a giant pain in the ass, honestly. But the further along in this series that you get, oh my gosh, it gets so good. The second book is probably my most favorite. I love the third book as well because I love Holland. I just really, really love these. Now, I think that the first book is kind of hard to get through. The storyline is really cool and I think that that's really enjoyable, but if you like Lila as a character, I think you will love this. But for me, because I hated her so much, I still hate her. I do not. She is probably one of my least favorite female characters I've ever read in a book, but this series as a whole is just breathtaking. I love it. I love the world. I love the way that V.E. Schwab kind of describes the world, and she goes really in depth and things like that. I just thought that this was absolutely wonderful, and I'm very, very glad this is the first book I read by her and not any of her YA work, because as you know, this is an adult book. If you weren't familiar, this is her adult writing, but oh my gosh, it is so good, and I'm so glad that I kept with it, because after reading the first one, I was kind of just like, I don't know if I want to pick it up right now, but I didn't have anything else that I had a desire to read, so I did go straight into the second one, and I'm so glad I did. I read all 3 of these together at the same time, and it is just absolutely wonderful. But like I said, the first one was kind of meh for me, but the series just takes off and it is so good and so beautiful. Alright guys, that is it for today's Top 5 Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed.
If I was a question, would you be my answer? If I was the music, would you be the dancer? If I was the student, would you be the teacher? If I was the sinner, would you be the preacher? Would you be my... Was it done, done, done?